Okay guys, welcome back. This is part 4 and I have formatted my entire interior document already. And one thing I didn't mention is that I wasn't alternating my chapters with my with the other chapter title page that I created for Braille. So that has now been corrected. I also had created this other style that was green instead of red for Braille's chapters, so I had updated all those styles. I have went through and balanced all my pages as best as I could. The last thing I'm going to do is I am going to run some grep searches. These are just some final searches on to make sure that all my quotations are complete, all my paragraphs end with a punctuation, things like that. So the first thing we're going to do is I'm going to check to make sure all my paragraphs end with punctuation. To do this, we're going to bring up the Find menu, Control F, and we're going to go to grep. Okay. Now I am going to paste in this grep search, and what this grep search does is it looks for any word that doesn't, or any end of paragraph that doesn't end in punctuation. Now, I'm not a grep expert. I actually have found various grep searches from other people. Whoops, sorry. And have found a couple of handy grep searches. Now, if you want to know more about grep, there's a great InDesign group for grep. There's also some great books. Look on InDesignSecrets.com for more information on grep. It can be a very powerful tool. It can help you update things throughout your document or find things, and that's what I use it for. So what we're going to do is we're going to I have this particular grep search that I pasted in, and we're just going to find next. All right, now it's finding my white text behind. This should say Braille behind here, and it doesn't end with a punctuation. Well, I don't want it to find those. I really only want it to find within the chapter text. So we're going to change it. We're going to tell it to only find text in the chapter text, because that's all we care about. We know that the chapter numbers don't have punctuation. We know that the chapter titles don't have punctuation. It's everything else that matters, those first paras as well as chapter text. But for now, I'm just going to search for chapter text. And let's see, sometimes it doesn't let you know where. Let's see if it'll tell us where it's at. Okay, so it is down here somewhere. Sometimes you can't tell where InDesign is at. Okay, so it is actually, I have a hard line break, and I typically don't recommend doing this, but I did it because I didn't like the way this line was stretched out. So it's actually looking at my hard line break that I have, but the paragraph still ends in a period, so it's okay. Now here's a perfect example, and you know, this is something that we didn't catch in editing. There needs to be a period here, and there's not. So this is the whole reason why I run this search. Okay, so I know I need to add a period there. Here it's finding my hard line break because I manually set this paragraph because I didn't like the way it was bunched together. So we're going to ignore that one. And then sometimes you can't see where it's at. It might be in the same spot. Let's just double check to make sure everything has a period here. Yep. Okay. All right, and here's another one. I'm telling you not to do those hard line breaks, and here I have them scattered throughout my document. All right, so here's another one. So she says, hey little buddy, she says needs a period at the end. Found my hard line break. All right, so we are cycling through all the ones that we've already looked at. All right, now let's quickly look at these that I have a hard line break in so I can tell you why I did them, okay? So for this one, I'm going to clear this override. I wanted to balance these two pages, And there wasn't really any, I could have moved this line to the top here, but then brings this down, and so we still leave unbalanced pages. And the longest line, I could try to push this down to 3 lines to get this to move down a line, and that's what I did. So I expanded it by 10 in the tracking, and I expanded it by 20 in the tracking, and it still would not force itself down, even 30 and even 40. Okay, so it wasn't until I did 40 did it force the down. Now, because of those that grep style that I have set up where it wants the 10 characters down at the bottom, that's the reason why it took so much tracking to force it down. So I don't necessarily like it so spaced out, like my way through the code. You can see there's a lot of spacing there. So I'm going to break my rule of less than 10 characters by forcing church down on its own. Now, anytime you do these forced line breaks like these, they need to be cleared up for the ebook. You do not want them in your ebook file. So this is for the print version only. Okay. So when we move forward to the ebook, I will need to get rid of those issues. And a lot of people think that they can have just one file for their print book and ebook, and it's all the same. But to be honest, there's a lot of little tweaks that we need to do to get this into an ebook format to make it work properly. So I tend to have 2 different files, and I don't start creating the ebook until after my client has approved the print book. And a lot of times I request that they get an actual printed proof, because a client, sometimes they will never see the mistakes until after they have a printed proof and I've already done the ebook. So once you have your print book and your ebook separate, you have to start making changes in 2 files, which can be cumbersome. So you want to try to wait as late as possible to create your ebook. Now, you can use the same file, but you're not going to have these little you're not going to be able to do these little formatting cleanups that I have a tendency to do because I'm a perfectionist in the document, and be able to use it for the ebook. So you can just not balance pages and not worry about those little spacing issues that I just showed you. You don't have to correct them. It's really up to you. All right, so the next little search that I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that everything ends, that everything has proper quotations. So that's what this one is. I'm going to go to the very beginning of my document again. And it's going to find some because I have some blocks of long quotations that move from paragraph to paragraph, and the rule is you don't need an ending quotation at the end of the paragraph if the same person is speaking in the next paragraph. So we have to pay attention to that to make sure whether it's needed or not. All right, here is a perfect one. I roll my eyes. He's too old for you. And then the next sentence is actually another speaker, so I know I need to put a close quote there. Here is another one. This is actually the same person speaking, so I know I don't need one there, so we're going to ignore that one. Again, this is the same person speaking, so I don't need one there. All right, that's it. Now, going back to cleaning up the document, if you don't clean up the spaces in between a period and a paragraph mark, these grep searches are not going to work. That space is going to throw it off, and InDesign is going to tell you, it's going to find every single line that has a space there as if there's not a punctuation. So that's one of the reasons why I clean those up. Okay. All right, so now that we have run those grep searches and I feel pretty good about my document, what I'm going to do now is I am actually going to export it as a PDF, and I'm just going to take a look at the PDF, okay? So to export, in InDesign, there's a couple ways you can do it. You can go to File, Export, or you can go to the Adobe PDF presets. Now, Ingram Spark and KDP and most of the on-demand printers require you to send them a certain type of PDF, and that is a PDF-X 1A 2001. And so Adobe InDesign has this already defined as a preset. So to create the proper file for PDF, proper PDF for KDP and Ingram Spark, all you have to do is go to File, Adobe PDF Presets, and then select PDF X1A 2001. All right, something to keep in mind, if your book has bleeds, you will need to do an additional step. Okay, and I'm going to show you that right now. I'm just going to click Save, and it's going to run. All right, I'm not going to go to my bleeds panel and select Use Document Bleeds because I'm going to show you when the PDF generates. All right, we're going to correct this in a minute. Sometimes you may get some missing font errors, and you'll need to clear these out before you create the final PDF. So we'll do that in just a minute. I'll show you how to find those. So I'm going to click on OK. And it will take a little bit of time to generate the PDF. If you look up here on your file menu, you'll see it running. There's also under Windows, Utilities, Background Tasks, and I already have this on my menu board over here. You can check to see how far along it is, and you can see it's moving on. It's 32% now. But you can still work in the document as it's running. Just know that it's not going to, if you make any changes at this point, what is created here is not going to show it. Okay. All right. So now let's go to that error that we got about a missing font. There's a couple of ways to figure out what is missing. And InDesign is going to show you a couple of areas. So down here, if you look at the bottom, you'll see this little red dot, and it says one error. So I know that I have an error in my document. If we didn't have any errors, this would be green, okay? So you can actually click on the little arrow here and say pre-flight panel, okay? Another way to get to the pre-flight panel, we'll look at this in a minute, is to go to Output, under Windows, Output, Pre-flight, it's a tongue twister. Or if you're like me, I use pre-flight often, so I keep it on my menu bar over here. So pre-flight basically is a check of your document to make sure all the links are there, you're not missing any graphics, any external graphics. There's two ways to put graphics in InDesign. You can embed them or you can link them. I typically link them because it keeps your file size down. So it will let you know if that link is broken, and you'll have to tell it where that graphic is located. It also gives you errors where there may be some font issues, and that's what this particular error is. It's telling me that I'm missing a font, the ITC Esprit Standard Italic. But if you remember, ITC Esprit doesn't come in a regular italic. It's actually called Book Italic. So I know wherever this is, I need to change it to Book Italic. And it'll tell you what it is that's incorrect, and it's also going to tell you the page number. So if you click on the page number, it actually takes you to, where that error is. So let's come over here. Sometimes these panels will cause you issues. All right, so this is where the error is, but this is actually off our document. So I'm not too concerned about it, but I do like to clear up errors so I can get my little green light. So I'm actually just going to cheat and select that and change it to bold italic. Now, you'll notice that down here, it changed it to a green arrow, so we have no more pre-flight errors, okay? All right, so now let's look at the PDF that was generated. And when you go to export a PDF, if you tell it, hold on just a second, I'm going to show you. Let's close this again. If you tell it to view the PDF after exporting, now this automatically defaults to off. So I always check this because I like to look at the PDF after I create it. So you can select this, so once it's done, the PDF automatically pops up like it did for me. Okay, so we're going to open up this PDF. Now, I can't really view it this way. I want to see the full page. I want to see the double page spread. This is really zoomed really tight, and I don't want that. Now, I also want my clients, when they view the PDF, I want them to be able to see it as a spread as well. So I actually save view settings for my clients. Now, the negative part about view settings is that if the client just opens up the PDF from a browser webmail service like Gmail, and they view the PDF in the browser, these view settings are not going to work. The view settings only work when they download the file and then they open up the file and view it in like Acrobat or Reader. So, but I still do this anyway because it helps me. When you go to set the page view settings, you go to File, Properties, and now this is in Acrobat, so you need to make sure you have Acrobat. Page layout, if you click on the initial view tab, page layout is going to be 2 pages, and it's going to be a cover page. So we're going to tell it to show a 2-page spread. However, the first page of that 2-page spread is going to be a cover. So if you tell it to do cover, it's going to know that it needs to start the document on a right-hand page. Okay. And then we are just going to tell it to fit the page. Okay. All right, so I'm going to just save this. And one more thing on that properties menu, if you look at the description, it will give you the page size, and it will denote the page size of this is 5 by 8, which is what my book size is. But because I have these lights that are bleeding off the page, my page size is actually going to be bigger because I need to have that bleed around the edge. I didn't generate the PDF with a bleed, so I will need to show you how to generate a PDF with a bleed, and that's an important step because without that bleed, it's going to print a little off, and in some cases there's going to be like white around the edges. We definitely don't want that. Okay, so I'm going to click on cancel, and I'm just going to close this, and then I'm going to reopen it just so it'll open up with the proper view settings. So you'll see it's set to a cover, and then we've got the double page spreads. So at this point, I just kind of look and make sure I'm happy with how everything looks. I'm going to delete out the contents page because this is for once I save out the ebook one, I'm going to delete out the contents page because I do not need the contents page for the print book. Okay, so I just quickly glance through this header. I think I want to add space between the author names and the ampersand, but because this is this is a text variable, I have to cheat it a little bit. Okay. All right. So what you do at this point, just quickly look through it, make sure everything looks good. Don't flip through it quite like I am. Do take a little time. This is always a good check to make sure everything looks good. Make sure everything's lined up. Make sure you have the chapter title pages set properly. So we'll just scroll through to the end. All right, now you'll notice that our document is 277 pages. Your document always needs to have an even number of pages. So we're going to need to add a blank page at the very end. Okay. Now I will go back in and add in some back matter eventually, but for now I'm just going to go ahead and add that blank page at the end. So to add a blank page at the end, just go to the very last page of your document in your Pages panel, and then what we're going to do, select that last page, and then we're just going to click on this little plus sign that says Create New Page. Now what that did is it created a page based on the chosen master page on the one that I had selected. And we don't want the header and the page number on this page. We want it to be blank. So we're just going to assign the blank master page to that. Okay, so that's how we get that. Now, one thing I wanted to do is I wanted to add space in the headers for here. And if I add in space, I'm going to have to add it here. So I would have to add a space here and a space here. But wherever I have author name, it's going to space it out. So on the copyright page, it's spacing it out. But it gives the right space here. I think it looks nice. So in these cases, this is where I cheat a little bit. I'll just copy this, and I will remove the text variable I have here, and then I'll just paste this and know that that's not linked anymore as a text variable. Okay. All right. So now I'm actually just going to move this contents page off the thing. One thing I don't want for the print document is I don't want it to just have the copyright page and then here's chapter 1. I do want some sort of decorative page here. So in some cases, I will just create a half title page, and that's what we're going to do. We're actually just going to make the title a little bit smaller and just do it just like that. Okay. All right, so now we're going to generate another PDF. Let's actually close this one. We're going to save this, and then we're going to generate another PDF. But this time we're going to include the bleed. So to do that, we go to Marks and Bleeds, use the document bleed settings. And we had already input these when we adjusted our page sizes. So our bleeds are 0.125 on the top, bottom, and outside, and 0 on the inside. Now, if you work with any offset printers, they may require a bleed on the inside, so you need to make sure you get proper instructions from them on how they want you to set up the document. Everything I'm telling you is how KDP and how Ingram Spark wants it. Okay. All right, so we're going to export again, and this time it's going to have the bleed, and then we can pull up the background tasks and watch it run. All right, so I'm going to leave you here, and then once this is done, we'll come back and look at it, and then we are going to move on to the ebook. Okay, InDesign has finished creating our PDF. First thing to look at is I always like to verify that the bleed is there, make sure I didn't make a mistake. So our page size is now it's actually 5.125, but it just rounds up, by 825, and we do have an even number of pages. So we're good. This is 5 by 8 with a 1/8 of an inch bleed at 278 pages. I'm going to also go ahead and change my view, just because that's what I do. Then we're going to save it. And I'm actually going to do a save as, and I'm going to call this color. Okay. Now I'm going to actually open back up the main one that wasn't color. And I'm going to show you how to convert a PDF to a black and white. Now, you don't have to do this. You can actually upload your color file to KDP and to Ingram Spark, and they'll actually print it black and white. So this step is really unnecessary. But when you're working with a client and they see color, they may think that they're getting color, and they may ask, well, I really need this to be black and white. So they don't quite grasp the concept. So I automatically convert it to a black and white for them. There isn't any specific way you can do it in InDesign unless you actually go in and convert all your graphics to black and white graphics. So I do it outside of InDesign in Acrobat, okay? So what we're going to do is in Acrobat, we're going to click on our Find Tools, and we're just going to type in color. And we need the Print Production Convert Colors option, okay? So we're going to click on Convert, and then we're going to this will pop up the Convert Colors menu, and there's only a few things that you need to worry about on this kind of intimidating thing. first off is down here, convert options. You want to preserve black. That's number one. Okay. The second part is output intent. Convert colors to output intent, select that, and then you're going to choose a profile. Right now, it's set to web-coded swap, which is what Ingram Spark and KDP usually wants. But we're going to change it to Gray Gamma 1.8. Now, you can do Gray Gamma 2.2. You can try both of these to see which produces the best results, but from my experience, Gray Gamma 1.8 has been the best. So I'm going to click on OK. And it's going to run through. It's actually only looking at all the pages that have color on it and converting it. So you can see the skips of the numbers. So just give it a minute. And if you hear my dog, she's barking. All right, so it's almost done. Okay, so now we have a black and white document. Now, it's not as pretty, but, you know, who can afford color runs for paperback books? But it's still pretty, so we still get, you know, that this is Christmas lights with the letters probably don't look like, they may look like they have a little glitter to them. So that's it. That's how you get it to black and white, and then we're just going to exit, and we'll save it. And then this is the one, actually, this is not the one I would send to KDP. I would actually call it Interior Final 01, and then that's the one I would submit for the print document to KDP or Ingram Spark. So that way, anything that says final, I know I have the bleeds built in, okay? All right, so the next step is to move on to the ebook. And what we're going to do now is we are actually, we are going to save our file. Go ahead and save it and make sure it's already saved. But just make sure you save your file before you do the next step. Because what we're going to do is we're going to do a file, save as, and I'm actually going to save another version of this file under ebook. Okay, so now I'm ready. The first thing I'm going to do, because this is an advanced reader copy, I am going to add my cover to the very front page, and then I am actually about to add a statement in right here. Just to let people know that this is the advanced reader copy and that not just ignore proofreading stages at this point because we haven't gone through our final edit, which is pretty common for ARCs. So what I'm going to do, because I pasted this in and now all my pages are misaligned. So you see everything's just a big old mess. Don't freak out. You're not going to have to reset all of the pages again. You're actually only going to have to reset two, okay? And that's this page and then the next page. So whenever you add in content, after you've already set your master pages throughout the whole document, you've got to think in terms of how many pages did I add? Well, technically, I added 2 pages because I added this ARC statement. Then I'm going to need a blank page here because I want chapter 1 to start on a right-hand page. Okay, so what I need to do is come in to our pages panel where page 1 is, select page 1, and I'm going to insert. For now, I'm just going to insert 1 blank page after. Okay, so just for now. And we're going to see what that does. All right, so now that I have that blank page in, I'm going to come in and actually change the master for this page 1 because I don't want the head, the Zane or Braille graphic on here, and it doesn't really matter whether I have the lights on here or not. So I'm actually just going to choose the E title, no ornament, and drag and drop on page 1, so those go away. Okay, now we still have the issue of the pages being misaligned, and actually we have this chapter number twice. We can delete one of those. Okay, so now we need to look, do we need to add in another page? I don't think so. I think we're going to be okay with this. Let me make sure. Okay. So all we need to do is apply the B chapter title master page to this one. Okay. And we'll see how that lines up. Oh, nope. Okay. So we're still misaligned a little bit. So what we're going to do is we are going to come right here. You'll see that H was our chapter title for Braille. So after this one right here, A, we need to insert a blank page, and we need it to be the A header page. Okay, it'll make sense in a minute. Okay, now, what happened? This is what happens. We added a blank page in, but our text doesn't automatically thread to that blank page. So we need to thread our text because this text needs to be over here onto this blank page. So to do that, select the last frame from where you want it to thread from, okay? And then this little arrow right here, you just need to click on it, and then we're going to drop it in. Now it's important that you just don't willy-nilly and drop it in somewhere. We need to drop it into this text frame so it stays in the master text frame, okay? So you just click there, and then it's going to load, and then everything's going to line up once again. Okay, so if you find yourself needing to add some content that shifts all your master pages, think of in terms of how many pages you actually added in content, and you'll need to add those pages in, and then you might have to reflow some of the chapter pages, but you shouldn't have to do too much if you add those pages in. Okay. All right, so now what we're going to do, we're going to add in our cover, and this is just for the PDF that I'm going to generate for any people who want the PDF instead of an EPUB or MOBI. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the very beginning, and I'm going to insert page. I'm going to tell it to insert before page FM1, and we just want it to be blank. Doesn't have to be anything. And I'm actually going to place my cover on this page. And we're talking about organizing graphics. Don't laugh at me because I have not organized these graphics. I preach it all the time, but do I do it myself? Sometimes I don't. Okay, so this cover isn't set to the right size quite yet, so we're going to fib it a little bit. We're going to have a little white space above and below, but that's fine. I just need to resize the cover because I designed the cover at 6x9 like a silly girl, and it's going to be 5x8. So we're just going to leave it like this for purposes of this. Now, because we only added one blank page, everything is misaligned again. So what we're going to do is we're going to come in here, add another blank page after FM1, and that should push the title page right back to the position that it needs to be. However, it did screw up that one little page that I had, the dummy page of the title page, to keep my headers intact. So we're going to move that back, which will reflow the document properly. Okay. All right, there is some sort of text box over here that I do not know what it is. So I am going to possibly delete it, and hopefully it won't cause any issues. Nope. Okay, so I'm going to have to figure out what this is before we create the ebook, because any text frames you have in this area can actually come into the ebook. So try not to keep too many things in that are linked in your artboard here. Okay. All right, so now I'm pretty happy with this. I am just going to add advanced reader copy. Oops, would be helpful if I typed better. So I'm just going to add a disclaimer so people know that this is an advanced reader copy. And we are just going to put it on top of our cover, just so they know. Okay. And then we may add another one. Do not distribute. You always have to protect yourself, you know. All right, so here we go. I am going to save this, and then I'm going to export it. And for purposes of, since we're sending this file to people to read, I'm not going to save it like I usually do, where I save it a double page spread, because when people read PDFs on their Kindle or their iPad, they usually just read it page by page, and they can actually change it themselves. So I am going to stick to the PDFX 1A, and then I'm going to call this Unwrap My Heart 01 Arc 01. And then I do not need bleeds because this is for, for screen viewing, so you do not need the bleeds. The only time you need the bleeds is when it's going to be an actual printed version that you send to KDP or Ingram Spark. All right, so look at our background task. We know that's running. All right, so now let me close some of the other files that I was working on today. And this one. Okay, so now I'm gonna show you the reason why I like to, at this point, once I have my interior set, I don't automatically export as an EPUB and go with that. And I'm going to show you the reasons why, because I'm actually going to do that. So in InDesign, you can export directly to an EPUB, and all you have to do is go File, Export, and on the export options where it says Save As Type, you have many different choices. Some of these I've never used, like the Adobe Experience Manager mobile article. Never done that one. But all the other ones I have in some shape or form. There are two EPUB formats. There's one called a fixed layout, and there's one called reflowable. A fixed layout is mainly used for children's illustrated books or comic books, things that the fonts need to stay intact, the layout needs to stay intact. Everything about the print book needs to look exactly like the ebook. Novels are not fixed layout ebooks. Novels are meant to be reflowable. You do not want to set your novel as a fixed layout because that kind of defeats the purpose of a reader being able to change a font that they're comfortable with, the size of the font, the background. In a fixed layout, you can't do that. So make sure all your novels are always going to be reflowable. All right, so we're going to choose reflowable. And I'm actually going to call this ebook 01. And I'm actually going to save it in my ebook folder. Okay. All right. Now this, hold on, our little advanced reader copy that we created is popping up. So I'm actually going to set it to single page and fit page. And then this is the ARC that I will send to readers. Now, one thing I will check is I want to check the size to see how big this is, because you don't want to bombard people with a large file. So this is actually 15 megabyte. I'm okay with that. And anything under 20 I would be okay with sending. Okay, so I know this will be ready to go. Now, I don't really care for blank pages in the ARC, so I am actually going to delete all my little blank pages that I had at the beginning, because it doesn't matter whether they flow left or right. And then at the end, I think I have one blank page, so I'm going to delete that out. So this is the PDF that I would send to people who have requested the advanced reader copy in a PDF format. Okay. All right, so now back to the creating the EPUB. Now, there are many different options for the EPUB, and the Generals tab, the one I recommend is switching it to EPUB 3.0. That is the newest type of EPUB. You can still use 2.0. I think every vendor still it now accepts an EPUB 3.0. A year or two ago, I think Smashwords still only accepted 2.0. I don't know. I don't use Smashwords very often at all. I don't have any clients left that still use Smashwords. So I don't know whether they need a 3.0 or a 2.0. So if you do plan on using Smashwords, I would just look into which version they need. Okay, so I'm going to choose EPUB 3.0. Now, typically, I actually tell InDesign where my image is. This is the front cover. So it puts a front cover of your ebook in the ebook file. So typically I do not include the front cover. So I would find where I have my front cover saved, and I would give it the file location here. Now, one little quirk about this is that it may not find your cover where you have it saved, because for some stupid reason InDesign automatically looks for a GIF first when you're adding the cover. So whatever format your cover is, just make sure you change it here so it'll actually find it. Mine is in a JPEG, but I'm not gonna choose this option. This is what I usually choose, but I'm not gonna choose this option because I already have the front cover as the first image. So I'm gonna tell it to rasterize the first page. All right, now navigation TOC. This is what we need. Actually, you know what? Let's backtrack. I had deleted out the TOC, but we need to add it back in. So what I'm going to do is come here right before page 1. I'm going to insert a page. It doesn't have to, it can be a blank page. And then I am going to drop, actually I think this might be our TOC. Yep, that is our TOC. Okay, that weird box that I was looking at, that's our TOC. So we don't need to do regenerate it. So what I'm going to do is bring that table of contents over, and I'm going to generate the table of contents. So in the template that you get, you'll have that pre-built table of contents page. So you just need, with your selection tool, just select it and then go to Edit, Layout, Update Table of Contents. Okay, now you might think, oh my gosh, what's wrong with it? All right, something is seriously wrong with it. It's created like a million pages. It's okay. The table of contents is set to 6 by 9. And so when you have, it's actually got a right tab built in for these dot leaders and for the page number. So when you have a smaller document than 6 by 9, you're going to have to adjust the style for this table of contents. Okay, so we're going to do that. What we're going to do is we're going to go to our style menu, TOC chapter title, and we're going to edit it, and we're going to look at the tabs. Okay, and so our tab is here at 4.5 currently, and we actually need the tab to be right here, which is about 3.25. So we're going to take this little tab character and move it to about 3.25. Okay, you see that? So now everything fits. Click on OK, and then we'll move it over. Now, if this was for the print version and I was actually keeping a table of contents in, I would have probably have pushed it all the way over here, but we don't need to worry about that. All right, because for ebooks, we don't need page numbers. So we're actually going to modify how this table of contents displays. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to table of contents styles, and we are going, this is the TOC definition. You can actually have multiple table of contents in your InDesign documents. This comes in handy when you are doing complex nonfiction books that maybe have a table of contents for the regular book, for illustrations, for figures, for tables and stuff like that. So it allows you to create multiple table of contents. You just need to make sure you have it uses styles, so you need to make sure you have different style names for those different ones. So if you want to do a separate table of contents for your tables, you need to have a style that says tables, figures. So you need to have be able to differentiate them for the purposes of the table of contents. Okay. All right. So we are going to edit this, and we do not want any page numbers. Okay. However, we want these still to be linkable. So what we're going to do is we're going to click on More Options, and we are going to, right now we have other titles, chapter title, and part titles. And the only thing we really want to display is chapter titles. So I can remove all those other things because I don't even think we have them in the document. So we select chapter titles, and this is all the information for our chapter titles. It's using the TOC chapter title style. The page number is after entry. And then there's a tab between the entry and the number. And so that tab is what has those dot leaders that leads to the page number. So we are actually going to tell it to do no page number. And the only thing you need to worry about here is that for some reason InDesign for the EPUB, this needs to be checked. Make text anchor and source paragraph. So it used to not default to be checked, but now it does. Okay, so we're going to click on OK. We're going to click on OK. Now we're going to re-update the table of contents. Okay. All right. Now one thing is this unwrap my heart. This was my little ARC memo, and I just kind of cheated and just created a fake chapter title, used my chapter title style, but I'm just going to create a new style, call it chapter title 2. And then I'm going to regenerate my table of contents because I don't want that to be in my table of contents. All right. All right. This is perfect. Okay. So now that we have, I'm actually going to just style that as well. All right. So now that we have the table of contents done, we are going to go to export as an EPUB now. Okay. So ebook, and I'm going to call it ebook 01. All right, again, remember spaces. Spaces are not friendly in ebooks, so you should always name your files with underscores where you want spaces. All right, so save. We're back to this. We want EPUB 3. We're going to rasterize the first page. Now, navigation TOC. You need to choose our TOC that we defined. So for navigation TOC, you are going to choose multi-level TOC, and then it'll list out all the table of contents that are within this document. So this is the one that we just updated. So TOC is what we want the navigation TOC to be. And this is for the purposes of the file, of the EPUB file, the actual navigation that's going to be shown through the ebook reader. Okay. Content is always going to be based on page layout. And we will choose split document, and we will choose based on paragraph style export tags. These are what you're always going to choose. Now, the problem is I haven't set these 100% yet. I do have, they may come out right, doubtful. But part of the next step is I will show you how to set paragraph style export tags so your document will split at those pages. And so for our pages, we have that light at the top. We actually want our pages to split right before that light, that string of lights, but it won't do that just yet. All right, so the next tab is text. You don't need to worry about any of these unless you have some forced line breaks, which I do. So I am actually going to remove those, and that way I don't have to check for them. And footnotes, we don't have any footnotes. We don't have any lists. So this section down here is more for those advanced nonfictions. And if you ever get into doing advanced nonfictions and you want some lessons on how to do ebooks for advanced nonfictions, I would definitely recommend taking a training session with me. I have been doing advanced nonfiction ebooks for a very long time, and they can be pretty cranky when it comes to lists and footnotes and endnotes. And there is a feature with endnotes that InDesign does not do properly, and you have to do a lot of work in the code to clean it up. So if you ever get into that or ever have to do an ebook with that and you're just pulling your hair out, feel free to hit me up. Okay? All right, now object. This is basically how graphics appear. Um, Definitely keep the preserve appearance from layout, and in the CSS it will ebooks, the way they work is an ebook is basically a collection of web pages, and the styles in the web pages are defined with a cascading style sheet, just like web pages are. And in the CSS, you can tell InDesign to either set your images to fixed or relative to page size. If it's fixed, it gives pixel dimensions for all the images that are in your ebook. I prefer them to be relative to text flow. And so at that, what it will do, it will assign a percentage of size for that image, which I think looks better overall on various devices. If you set it to a pixel, some of the higher resolution devices, that pixel number might be really small. And then on some of the devices that are not high res, it might be really big. So that's why I like to use the percentages, because it does a percentage based on the screen width. Okay. Don't worry about anything else. This align center, space before, after, don't worry about that. The only thing you need to worry about is that relative to text flow. All right, conversion settings. If you have a lot of images, you might want to choose 72 or 96. I generally keep it at 150 because I typically don't have a lot. And then I will also look at, I'll crack open my EPUB that InDesign generates, and I will optimize the graphics that it creates. So sometimes I will go in and just manually adjust that to 96. Really depends on the file size. I try to keep my ebook size under 5 megabytes. So if you don't want to do a lot of manipulation in the EPUB after the fact, you could probably go ahead and adjust this down to like 96 or 72. Right now I'm going to keep it at 150. I'm going to keep the JPEG options at progressive and high. So again, you can always change this to medium or low. You can tell it to do PNGs, JPEGs, or GIFs. It really doesn't matter, whatever your preference is. You can look at file size. GIFs are usually smaller, but the quality isn't as good. PNG, yeah, it's great because it is transparent. However, Kindle does not deal with transparent images. So you can set everything up as a PNG, but Kindle still is going to think it's on a white background. That's one of the negative things about Mobi files. Maybe one day they'll change that. We're hoping. So for now, I'm just going to tell it to do PNG at 150 because, actually, we'll go ahead and do 96. because it's not going to bring in very many of my graphics anyway just yet. And I will tell you why in just a minute. All right, so this HTML plus and CSS, you always want to include classes in HTML. You want it to generate the CSS. I actually put in a page margin of 25 pixels all the way around. I do preserve local overrides, but I do not include embeddable fonts. And the reason being is that with font embedding in ebooks, there has to be some layers of security within the EPUB, and a lot of retailers will not accept files that have that level of security. So from the years of experience that we've been doing this, we have just decided that it's just not the best choice to include embeddable fonts. And so we don't. So the ebook is always going to look different because it's going to not include the fonts that we intended it to be designed with. But that's the purpose of an ebook. The reader chooses what font they want. So next, JavaScript. Don't need to worry about that. I've never even used this. But I'm sure there's many purposes for somebody to do JavaScript. Like I know that some of the animated EPUBs can use JavaScript. But I have never used this. All right, metadata. This is where we put the book title. And it will not accept an ampersand, so we need to type out, if I could type, the author names. Date. Date has to be in a specific format. Year comes first, a dash, then the month, a dash, and then the day. Description. This is where you could put in a blurb if you wanted to. You can also crack open the EPUB and add keywords. You can put the publisher name here. Rights, all rights reserved. And this is YA Romance. So you can put different things here. This is all the metadata for the ebook, but when I get heavily into the metadata, I usually open up the EPUB and open up the file in Dreamweaver and add all the details there, because this doesn't have keywords listed here, and you can list the keywords there. All right, now the last thing is the viewing app. If you don't have Adobe Digital Editions, I would recommend downloading it, and this is what I'm going to use to view it. And you don't have to view it after, but I like to see how it looks. So we're going to click on OK, and now it's going to generate the EPUB. And when it's done, you'll be able to see what it looks like. All right, now at this point, it's going to give you an error. That's fine. I know why that error exists. We're just going to ignore this for now. This is part of the cleanup that we're going to have to do in our document. So click on OK. All right, so this is what the EPUB looks like in Adobe Digital Editions. All right, so it took our front cover and added Advanced Reader Copy, Do Not Distribute. I'm going to go to the next page. And you say, why is the cover in there twice? We'll correct that in the next version, okay? And you'll notice that the one I had on top, the little notice that I had on top, it put it down below. Whereas here on the cover page, it had it directly on there, okay? And there's reasons for that, and we'll go into that, okay? And sometimes, come on. All right, so here is a light. This all looks funny, doesn't it? There's a reason for it. So here's our title page, and here's our author names. That's weird. Not really. I know why I did it. Here's our copyright page. Why? Why is that all together? All right, here's the half title page we set up. And here's the contents. And here's all our table of contents. Let's continue on. Sometimes Adobe Digital Editions isn't the best, but it's what we have. so here's where it starts. Why is this all the way down at the bottom? Okay. Oh boy. Number one, where's our title? Where's our little cute little graphic? Where is our, our lights? And, it looks like the quotation is after T. All right. What is that? This is our scene break, believe it or not. All right, page 2, chapter 2, this is all run together. Okay, so this is why we do a lot of cleanup work in our file. We can't just export directly from our print file and expect the ebook to look good. We do have to do some work, okay? All this stuff I expected, I knew it, I wanted you to see it though. I wanted you to see what we're up against. All right, now I'm going to show you one more thing. I am actually going to show you what this looks like in on a Kindle. So I have this great little app called Kindle Previewer, and you can download it from Amazon. Just type in Kindle Previewer download. And basically, if you are creating if you need a Mobi file to distribute, you can take your EPUB file, drop it into Kindle Previewer, and then export it as a Mobi file. So what we're going to do is we are going to drop that EPUB that we just created that has a lot of errors into Kindle Previewer, and we're going to see what it looks like. So I'm going to show you some of the things that Kindle does that to our EPUB that I like to correct before I export the EPUB. Because the majority of our readers are going to be on a Kindle, and we want the Kindle first and foremost to look the best. One of the things that it does, it looks at spacing a little different. So if we have a 1/4 of an inch indent for our chapter text, it literally looks like 1 or 2 spaces on a Kindle. So one of the things that I do in my EPUB file, or for my InDesign file that I set up for the ebook, is I increase those indents to 1/2 an inch, which would look horrible in print. It's way too big, but for the Kindle, it looks just fine. So I'm going to show you those little things. Actually, I'm going to pause this right now because it will take a while, and I don't want you to have to sit here and watch this. So by the time I get you back, it'll be done. Okay, this is what it looks like in Kindle Previewer. It basically gives us the same issues that we saw in the Adobe Digital Editions version. Okay, so Kindle Previewer is really cool. You can change how you want it to preview. So this is what it would look like on a phone. This is what it would look like on a Kindle e-reader. And then, of course, this is what it would look like on a Fire. You can also change the font based on the options that are available in the Kindle app. You can change the font size. You can change the page size. It's a really cool little program to give you a really good idea of what your ebook is going to look like. So this panel right here, this shows all the pages, whereas this right here shows a screen and what it looks like. So you can flip through it here. All right, so you'll notice that that was white in Adobe Digital Editions, and anything that's white does not show in a Kindle, so it changed it to gray. All right, and we already know all these issues. Now, let's get into, here is the text that should be indented. This drives me crazy with Kindle. We have a 1/4 inch indent set in our book, and this is like barely even a single letter. So we definitely need to adjust that. And like I said, our Kindle, the Kindle app does not do white, so it brought in our white hidden titles in as gray. And so and again, here's our little non-snowman. It's just a dot for our scene break. And so yeah, that's what it looks like. It's not beautiful, but you know, the basics are there. We've got the drop cap, we've got the red. No, we don't have the cursive, but remember, we didn't embed fonts, so it's only going to bring in that, you know, it's only going to show the font for it. But it did change this to a sans serif, so that's good. It didn't, in the actual ebook file, I'll probably set this drop cap to a sans serif. Okay, so I just wanted to show you what it looks like, and so you know some of the limitations and you know some of the things that we're going to correct and why we're correcting them. And so that is going to be the next video. Originally I was going to do 4 videos, but now I realize 5 is going to be necessary. So the 5th video is going to be creating, making those changes in the InDesign file and getting it in a fashion that will export a pretty ebook and not this jumbled mess that we have now. Okay, so look for the next video, video 5.